Dan Fowler had a golf tournament for Tootie Smith. And we know Tootie isn't that black smoke where you live. And she had to leave that day. That was on Labor Day last year. And obviously we all know how devastating those wildfires were throughout the state. And gradually, communities such as Detroit, Mesquite are rebuilding, and those people's lives are being restored. But again, we at the Organization Business Alliance salute all of you that have had to deal with such tragic events, not only in your businesses, but in your own lives. Okay, we're getting a few more people through the buffet line. I'm going to let them go ahead and have a few bites to eat before I rush them up here. Or maybe I'll get Representative Meek to start before he gets his plate. Yeah, do you want to go ahead and get started, and then you can eat while Tootie is talking? Okay. Yeah, we thought we'd start with you, and that way Tootie can have time to have a root beer float for dessert. Did they show you how to do the slides?
No.
They'll help you out on that. All right, for everybody here in person, for everybody there at home on Zoom, I'd like to introduce to you Representative Mark Meek, who will be providing us a very informative, engaging, and comprehensive summary of what took place in Salem this year. Representative Meek.
And good afternoon. It's good to see everybody. This is so nice to see people in person, and just it's happy to be back. As everybody knows, we had kind of a hybrid session this year to begin with, and actually I'm going to see. Kent, can I lower this down a little bit, or my
Don't touch it.
I won't touch it, but I can't see folks right through this thing, so I don't necessarily need that monitor prompter there. So.
That's what's showing you for that.
Oh, okay. Well, then good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you. This session was kind of very definitely unique. We had all of our committee hearings remotely. We did it Zoom-style meets. This Microsoft Meets Teams system, and I normally, you're used to, and I can say that Chair Smith is definitely familiar with this process. We're in the Capitol in the committee hearing room. Well, this year we were basically remote, and we sat in a lot of our home offices and wherever, and we had online remote testimony. People were able to sign up in advance, but they either could participate with their own Zoom application or get on the phone, and but it was definitely not. It just didn't feel the same, and unfortunately, I was disappointed in many cases where we had maybe 30 or 40 citizens sign up for public testimony, and they weren't allowed. They didn't. They actually sometimes were limited to 1 or 2 minutes to speak. And in many cases, some folks were not, we ran out of time, and so they had to let us know that we were sorry, but submit your testimony via written testimony. We'll be happy to post it on Bolus. But to me, that was a bit of a lack of really true citizen participation. And so I was a little disappointed in that. But as it turns out, we did the best we could to really provide a good forum, have really good debates and conversations. And at the end of the day, I think that we provided really good relief to our citizens, both our businesses, our tenants, our landlords, and our agencies. And basically, through the federal government's programs, we were able to allocate and fund a lot of programs to help our citizens recover. So I'm very proud and thankful for that work. And I want to see, do I push this one? All right, there we go, because it didn't switch on that one. Okay. Well, quickly, I just wanted to kind of let you know a little bit about the work I did in participating with the Clackamas Caucus. Jeff Representative Reardon and myself, we were at a county forum meeting a few years ago and realized there was a lot of us legislators in attendance, and along with our county commissioners, business owners, city mayors and councilors, commissioners, and we had a great conversation. And I realized that, unfortunately, because Clackamas is a kind of, I want to say, a purple county, that we don't really have a strong caucus of members all on the same page, working hard in Salem to try to get good legislative priorities across the finish line. So we established the Clackamas Caucus in 2018 or 19, I think it was 19. And didn't really get any traction or steam. And in 2020, I asked to be the co-chair along with Representative Rick Lewis out of Silverton. And we ended up being the co-chairs. We established the bylaws, the voting process, and a process in which we could come to an agreement of what we as a caucus would prioritize and put all of our weight and energies and our votes behind. And as you can see from the screen behind us, we were able to we sent out a letter of support as a caucus, a full caucus, and which I'll have to just mention a few of the names. We have both Senator Kennemer, one of them, Senator Thompson, Senator, the gal from Thatcher, Senator Thatcher, Senator Wagner from Lake Oswego, Representative Lewis, Representative Bynum, and all of us out here that represented some segment of Clackamas County. And the reason I thought it was important was because Multnomah County, by just the volume of number of members that are representative, they have a strong voice and they have a lot of votes and they have a lot of I think leverage on getting things passed. And I was looking back a few years ago before I was elected, reading some of our economic recovery reports. And at the time we were just getting out of the recession. And I remember seeing that we looked at the stats, and Multnomah County had recovered to 95%, or maybe 110%. Washington County had recovered at 95%. Oral Clackamas County was at 68% or 65% recovery in jobs and economic development. I just thought that was a shame. So I think it's important that we make sure we work hard and pass really good legislation. So I'm very thankful and proud to be working with Clackamas Caucus. And as you can see, we prioritized several issues, including the Willamette Falls locks, the Clackamas County Courthouse. In the Clackamas County Courthouse, on a quick anecdote there, one of the chairs of the Capital Construction Committee, his name is Representative Hobie, that's how they call Hobie, was a little contentious about the model in which our county had decided to do it. It was a public-private partnership. And it was a great new model where we didn't have to go to voters to get a bond. But this process would allow us to partner with a private entity. They would front a lot of the other monies and funds. They would front, and we would be making payments and not lease payments, but management payments over the life of this agreement. And they just didn't quite understand it. So I had to have many conversations. We had Chris Lyons from Clackamas County help support it. We finally got them over the finish line and got that agreement and our funding available. So very thankful, and I think we're going to have a wonderful courthouse in the next several years. And after that 30-year agreement with this entity, we're going to have pretty much already a very much improved and maintained building instead of having deferred maintenance because we just can't afford to keep it up. Or the management agreement with them is that they're going to maintain that maintenance in that building for that 30-year contract. So I think it's a great model, and maybe we can use it for hopefully future college developments and expansions. I-205. So while I-205 was contentious in 2017, remember I talked about this Clackamas County, this Clackamas Caucus entity. I'm a Democrat, and I was in the Democratic caucus when they told me that, okay, House Bill 2017, the transportation package, this was in June, right, June probably 15th, right before the end of the session. Maybe not even, it was later, it was only like a week left before the session ended. They go, well, before you get worried about it, I-205 is still in this package, but they didn't quite tell me how the package was done. Basically, the I-205 segment was everything north of Foster and all of that development, and ours was put on the back burner. We were not allocated a single penny or a dime for those projects. I voted no for it, and I tried to reach out to other representatives to see what we could do to leverage to get some help to get that changed. Too late, too bad. And unfortunately, they were telling me, yeah, congestion price tolling is the answer. Well, congestion price tolling to me is not the answer, because if we look at expansion of Stafford Road to Abernethy Bridge, we're going to find they're going to add another lane, but you got to pay. You have to, as a member of this state, or even out of the state, I don't mind if they pay, but as a member of the state, we have to in order to utilize that lane, we have to pay an additional cost or fee. To me, it's unacceptable, and we fought hard with House Bill 3055. So the problem is, well, the issue is now, we did get allocation of that penny that was dedicated to the Rose Quarter to be part of these projects in January with ODOT and all the other, ODOT and all of our plans we've already submitted. We're going to be able to start construction on the Abernethy Bridge and the expansion of Stafford. It is the only shovel-ready project in the state of Oregon that's planned, budgeted, and everything else. So very thankful and happy we were able to get the funding now. That's what we just didn't have. We didn't have the money. So the congestion price tolling is still on the agenda, and I think it's going to be important that we remain vigilant and stay active and interactive with any conversations about how it's going to look in the future. In my opinion, it's very regressive, and actually it's punitive to our own community, because that's the only way to get across here at Westland and across the Willamette River. And if they want to divide this community, that's a great way to do it. And if they want to put a lot of traffic on the Arch Bridge, that's even a worse way to do it. So hopefully we can continue working on that. And thank you very much, Dan. And then also, just a small win, we got a $4 million allocation for the continuance of the Sunrise Corridor development, which is actually a big deal. But without those investments, we weren't able to really plan and prepare the expansion out hopefully towards 177. Yeah, 177. Okay. Now, so everybody probably remembers the ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan Act funds, and each representative and each senator was given an allowance to help mitigate and support some of the community, some of the action agencies and nonprofits in our community, including the county. And I was allocated $2 million. Senator Fennemer was allocated $4 million. And the assets that I was able to support and provide were accordingly up here to the Gladstone Library. They worked very hard, and I've worked with Commissioner Savas and many other commissioners over the last, including Commissioner Ludlow, Chair Ludlow way back then. We had many great conversations about the Gladstone Library, the Concord, potentially Oak Grove Library, how this was going to be a county library, not a county library, how it was all going to be, where all the funds came from. So the good thing was that the city of Gladstone were able to go and get a bond measure so that they were able to fund it themselves. But this is going to actually help support that, and actually hopefully allow them to get planning quicker, get all of the plans done, and also I'm hoping that they may be able to expand to have a community room there, because that was one of the options that they wanted, and that would actually allow them to have more meetings and access to their whole community. So it's very proud to be able to support that. And then the Clackamas Volunteers in Medicine, any CBIM members out there are aware of? Petronella out there. There's a lot of supporters. I'm sure if you're not a member, you've supported that their programs. They're going to co-locate up at the Clackamas Community College, but they needed the funding, they needed some resources, and they need some energy So myself, and I think it was Representative Salinas, we supported that with our ARPA dollars. So we gave a really good kickstart, and they're well on their way to being successful. And I'm thankful because that'll help some of our marginalized communities, BIPOC communities members, and even our folks that are just living below the poverty level to access healthcare that they wouldn't otherwise, including dental. And so I'm just so thankful and happy that we have an organization like the Plaquemines Volunteers in Medicine to support our community. And Parrot Creek, everybody probably is very familiar with Parrot Creek. They are expanding. We're trying to get them to expand to be both a co-ed opportunity and an expansion to help many more of our families and our youth to kind of navigate the legal system. And as I know personally and anecdotally through people and kids I grew up with, my cousins and uncles, they didn't have that opportunity to really get their life together. It ended up being a life sentence of just trouble, addiction, and in and out of the incarceration system. So I think this is one of the great tools to help our families and helps the youth that are experiencing trouble. You can tell everybody that's graduated from these programs, they're so just amazingly productive, and it's just been a great tool for them and their families. So happy to have supported that. And then the last thing was the business recovery centers, and we were able to get $600,000 to that program, and through the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce, Victoria Meinig and her staff, they're going to be allocating, working with the county, working with the state, LFO, Legislative Fiscal Office, and Department of Administrative Services, grant process, technical expertise, and support and help. So I was very thankful. And as a small business owner, somebody that was unfortunately, I survived the pandemic. The real estate market's been amazing. Also, property management. Only had a few tenants that really weren't able to pay rent, and a lot of my landlords were thankful that we kept them solvent. But part of the solvency was we established this landlord relief fund, or the landlord compensation fund, and also the tenant relief funds. And we've been working hard to try to keep those things more, I guess, accessible and functional, because they are running a little bit behind getting their funds out. But as you guys all know, in this case, the check really is in the mail. And so COVID recovery, if you think about a lot of the work that we've done this past year, it has been, as you can all agree with, it's been a very difficult year. And to even run your business, to interact with your family, kids going to school, college, graduating, all of those things, all these heartbreaks. And one of our main goals with this session was that we needed to address all of the issues that we were dealing with. If you look back in the last 18 months, we had the COVID, we had the PPP, personal protective equipment, we had a lack of that, and ventilators. And then we had, to throw it all on top, we had the wildfires, and then in February, this ice storms. I remember seeing the trees being cut down on 213, and not only seeing them, but sitting in traffic for a long time trying to get up the hill. And remembering, I was on the wildfire recovery committee at the time, and there were some folks complaining about some of the trees that were marked to be removed because of the wildfire. And I thought about, all of the necessary, all the trees that were destroyed, homes and even vehicles that, basically all the trees came down on top of. Excuse me. And it was such an important part of our recovery is to get those trees down. Just recently over at another property that my wife manages, some tree they didn't address came down on top of some cars in the parking lot. So I see some widowmakers, I want to call them, still up, where you can tell the green foliage up there, and there's dead branches up there, hundreds of feet high, that nobody has addressed and gotten down. And we got to be very worried and concerned about, and be careful wherever you go. Actually, Stone Creek. I've been out to Stone Creek and seen a couple out there, and that is county owned. not throwing them under the bus, but so as you can see, we did a lot to try to both mitigate and help our families recover through the COVID, including, of course, funding for tenant relief, businesses, counties, the lack of, collections of taxes, everything else. It was a really, really tough time. So I just want to put out, my applause and thanks for our businesses and our community leaders for basically working very, very hard and diligently to help us all recover. I know there's a narrative out there right now that kind of disturbs me. I let people know that I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be an Oregon State representative. I'm proud to just be, living here in Clackamas County with my friends and neighbors. And when all this political infighting goes on, and we're talking about the Civil War, and you're infringing on my rights, I think the left and the right, small segments on both sides, are being more loudly heard than the rest of us in the middle that care about our families, we care about our neighborhoods, we care about our neighborhood businesses, we're supporting them. And all we really want to do is just have a peaceful life that we can raise our families and enjoy our friends and enjoy our communities and the beautiful landscapes we have here. So always remember that just being here, part of this meeting, you are a community leader, and your voice and your participation in this process is definitely well earned and deserved and well appreciated. So continue your work. Thank you.
I'm good on time.
Well, I got a few more minutes.
Okay, good. I got a couple more slides, and then I just want to leave time for some questions. The next one would be, like I mentioned, I was on the Wildfire Recovery Committee, and a precursor to that, I was a co-convener of a work group with Representative Ann Williams. And starting in October, it was at the behest of the governor to communicate with our local county and our community members that were affected by the wildfires. We had testimony and invites from folks from Estacada, Molalla, the Damascus, and the whole outskirts in the county. And we witnessed and heard from businesses that were affected and homes that were affected and our communities that weren't able to really respond. And so through hours of just heart-wrenching testimony, we heard the stories of families that were just basically barely getting out of their communities and curious, very concerned whether they would even be able to make it out. And to only come back to see everything they had was destroyed. And so I'm very thankful. We had a straight bipartisan committee. It was, I think, 11 Democrats, 11 Republicans, and all the in between. And we came together and we passed some great legislation that not only helped and set the standard for them to rebuild. If you have a fire, if you've been in a wildfire, you have 1 year to rebuild, or those permits, or you have to build up to the new code standards. And a lot of cases, because of lack of materials went up, it was just like the perfect storm of disaster that we just knew that we needed to give our families more time to rebuild, not put the pressure on them to have a knee-jerk reaction and just throw something together, do it properly, plan it properly, get the right funds, do it effectively and economically. And so we changed the codes and gave them 5 years to rebuild, working with their own time frame. And we also worked with the codes so that we would give them a bonus, an allowance, that if they were to want to rebuild into some more hardened types of codes, a different kind of roofing and materials to be used, also to set up their defensive perimeters, we were going to actually give them an allowance to do that, but we weren't making it mandatory. So it was kind of like the carrot and the stick. We didn't put the stick, we gave the carrot, and we said, here, we're going to give you time to rebuild. If you want to build at higher standards, we're going to give you some allowance. We dedicated $500 million to wildfire recovery just this year alone. And I just need to let you know, none of the ARPA dollars, none of the federal dollars that came in could be used for wildfire recovery, because this was more a FEMA thing. This was declared the disaster. So none of the ARPA dollars were included in this recovery process. So, and So I'm just gonna kind of wrap it up here. And some other accomplishments we had were, talked about families trying to escape the hazards out there. A lot of them didn't have good communications. They, their internet was going out, and we are dedicating how many millions? I didn't even say there, but a lot of money, including funds that come out to Clackamas County to establish and get more broadband out to our rural communities. It's good for education, it's good for our counties and businesses and everything else. So very thankful and happy with that. And then also if you've heard of the Children's Advocacy Center, we have the Clackamas Children's Center right up here. And I've been a supporter of that for many, many years with just monthly payments and contributions. And I think it's a shame that as a community mandated, service that we need to provide to our children who have been abused. And if you've been up there, it is one of the most humane and just sensible ways for our children to have the interview done, get the evidence that they need without a lot of discomfort and having to live all those. So to me, the Clackamas Children's Center and also the other advocacy centers, they've been needing a shot in the arm, so I'm very thankful and proud we were able to get $6 million to that. And I think I mentioned a lot of the money, $400 million at least to landlord tenant relief fund, $50 million from last year, $400 million this year. So we feel that we should have plenty of funds to help our tenants recover and not be evicted, and help our landlords to remain solvent as they are dealing with the eviction moratorium ending and trying to stay solvent. So that being said, I'll leave a couple of minutes for some questions, and I don't know if there's any.
Actually, Mark, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead.
Use the mic.
Thank you. Thank you.
I thought it was.
No, what we're going to do is go ahead and save the questions until the end. That way we kind of group questions that are similar content together, so we're not being redundant. But I appreciate everything you had to share today. Thank you for the PowerPoint slides, and thank you for everything you've accomplished. We all know as business people and with our families how challenging it was trying to get things accomplished through Zoom and other electronic means of getting things communicated to one another. And fortunately, they had the long session this year, so they had more time to go ahead and work through the critical issues that our state was wrestling with. So now we're going to go ahead and turn it over to the chair of the Clackamas County Commissioners, Tootie Smith, who's going to give us more about a presentation on the legislative update and accomplishments. So with no further ado, Tootie.
Thank you, Ken. It's a really nice picture, but it's not me. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm happy to be in person. This is just great. On behalf of the county commissioners, we appreciate everything that the OCBA is doing to keep our communities economically viable, providing services, jobs, and income. Now I want to cover what we've been focused on, highlights in the last, since I came on board as chair in January of this year. We opened the session in January, still responding to the wildfires, which, by the way, we're almost upon its 1-year anniversary, and we still barely made it, right, Mark? Just when we thought we were doing all of the debris removal and getting back on track, bam, the February ice storms came. Clackamas County had to declare it yet, and I signed the emergency declaration order for that. Including the COVID-19, Clackamas County declared 3 federally recognized disasters in 11 months. We're the only county in America of 3,500 counties to be under 3 declared disasters at one time, and it took a hit on our budgets and our personnel. It's a classic case of out of the frying pan and into the fire. But I'm very proud of Clackamas County, our staff, and our residents, which includes all of you. As you know, when something breaks in your house, like plumbing that has to be fixed, and you stop everything you're doing to fix that problem. Or the county, you can imagine, that is not really an option for us. We still have to provide services to our residents, as well as serve all the people who were impacted by the disasters. It's a big job. I knew it was a big job when I ran for chair, and as I said, I'm very proud of the work we're doing. Now we're looking at these dry, hot days and hoping we aren't hit with another fire. My heart goes out to Southern Oregon right now at the Boom Lake fire, and we've all heard about that. Already, it's twice as large as last year's Riverside fire in Clackamas County. Oregon hasn't dealt with these 100-year fires in such a long time. In the last 12 months, we have had several. Additionally, Clackamas County this spring, up until a couple weeks ago, has had 5 fires that were quickly extinguished. I don't know if you are aware of that. So we're doing our best to be proactive in the wildfire. And the reason why I mentioned the wildfires in Clackamas County, we encompass 1.2 million acres. However, 70% of that acreage is forested, and it is very much prone to fires. As many of you know, we made the hard decision earlier this month to ban fireworks for the 4th of July celebration. That was tough, but it was critical. Cleanup still continues from the 2020 fires, and our disaster management office is still wrapping up their work, helping affected families, and simultaneously working the current wildfire season. And you know, folks, we really need some rain. And I thought we'd say that in Oregon. But we just can't depend on rain. And so in Clackamas County, we are proactively forming an emergency preparedness council. It's an idea that I had when I came on in January, but it got postponed because of the long COVID and our ice storm. Creating this council is one new step of what is taken to create a forum for community input around disaster planning response for all types of disasters. The 15 appointed council members will tackle community planning, identify gaps or areas of improvement, and communication trainings, just to name a few. Me and my colleagues are committed to this work and will participate as well. The framework and other logistical details will be presented for final board approval mid-August. So anyone interested in participating should keep their eyes open for recruitment information in the following weeks. Additionally, our wonderful Cracker Jack staff has taken the county and has divided it up into 21 zones based on geographic barriers, transportation routes, rivers, and bridges. So in the event of a large cascading event, heaven forbid, each of those zones can live independently from each other. It is our goal to have a large trailer equipped with all the essentials needed to be used in those in the emergency, and I'm sure we will be looking for the community and other providers to help us stop that. There's a few things that I want to cover quickly. Since this is a business association, one of the county's strategic goals, we have 5, is to grow a vibrant economy. And our goal, and this goal, is to ensure that the county businesses are operating in a supporting, business-friendly environment. We want to make sure you are in a position to thrive. That begins with letting you know your success is our top priority and listening to your feedback on how best that we can support you. The other goal is we want to increase the amount of jobs in the county that allow residents to have self-sufficient standard wages. We have a lot of work to do here. I expect you'll be hearing from our staff to begin this discussion. We can't help if we don't know what's going on. Another strategic priority of the board is to build a strong infrastructure. We updated that goal this year as well in January. And from this, we have several key state legislative victories. Thank you, Representative Meek and the other legislators. The first is to advance the infrastructure investment, as Representative Meek said, the Sunrise Gateway multimodal corridor. I am pleased to say that this $4 million project will entail a robust community engagement provisioning process of which Clackamas County will be leading. This will see a future funding request at the regional, state, and federal level for infrastructure needs. Next is advancing the I-205 project, which Representative Meek also mentioned, which directly affects Oregon City as well as the entire regional highway system. The county supported HB 3055, and it was controversial, mind you, during the state legislative session, but it takes one thing of gas tanks that was dedicated to one project over here that was not yet ready for construction and made it flexible for the region. The victory here is that great work ODOT has begun in the last 4 years to design the I-205 project. The design readiness, 90% for the Abernethy Bridge to get it earthquake ready, means that this is the first in line for the flexible beginning. At last, this bottleneck and seismic improvement work can start moving forward. ODOT will begin construction the spring of next year. That last, and yes, House Bill 3055 includes language about home that passed in the 2019 legislative session. When we testified before the Transportation Committee this session, I shared the county's opposition to tolling on the I-205. The question I asked is, why is Clackamas County being tolled years earlier than the rest of the region? It shouldn't be, and it's not fair. But also, HB 3055 lays the groundwork for regional congestion pricing. This, my friends, is the game to watch. Regional congestion pricing is a product of both ODOT and the state legislature trying to solve both their congestion and project cost problems at the same time. Clackamas County has adopted a set of transportation values in April as it relates to the issue of tolling in the region. That is our North Star right now when it comes to this topic. Here is what I know for sure. Clackamas County is in an awkward position of dealing with two tolling discussions. Tolling just I-5 for the bottleneck project and also this regional congestion pricing. It would be a dream come true if we could remove the I-205 tolling discussion and just focus on the regional congestion pricing. And in my discussions with the Oregon Transportation Commission, which will now decide how to implement tolling, I have asked, and I will be at the table to say, please do not toll I-205 any sooner than you toll the rest of the state of Oregon, because we know what's going to happen there. Our citizens will be severely impacted, and it will just cause more congestion on the other areas that are not tolled. And thank you to OCBA for signing our letter to the federal delegation requesting federal funding for the I-205. We have been lobbying our congressional partners in DC very hard. I believe it's quite possible we could get an earmark for that project. As Representative Meek said, it's the only shovel-ready project in the state of Oregon. And I think the main reason that we do not have a lot of federal transportation dollars in Oregon is because we never had a match. Tolling will offer a match, an agreement with Representative Meek, yes. And so although this is a very bitter pill to swallow, we could get some good out of it. Here's some other victories that's affecting our county from the legislature. $700 for the recovery business centers, $600,000 for Oregon City's Chamber of Business Recovery Centers. Representative Meek and Salinas put in $600,000 for the Clackamas volunteers and medicine. That project was $1.2 million. I went to my staff and said, this is a project that's very dear to my heart. They found a HUD community block grant for $650,000, matching funds to that. It allows the Founders Clinic to complete phase 1 of serving our medical needs. Almost like I just stopped right on that. And $7.2 million for the Wild Falls Locks and the formation of a public corporation to assume ownership of the facility. With our work with Representative Schrader in Congress, the House of Representatives passed the matching funds for that, and now goes to the Senate. And today, I am not sure where that is, although I did hear on the news that the United States Senate passed the infrastructure package, and I do not know what's in it. Now on to the courthouse replacement project. When I was a commissioner a long time ago, we had teed that up. It's been like 8 years we've been kicking this around. And to give you some perspective on why the courthouse, we did the courthouse, it's a state law that county governments provide the courthouse, whereas the state provides and pays for our judges, the counties provide for the place. It is also part of the Red Soils master plan that our founding fathers built 30 years ago, the whole Red Soils campus up there. And I can say it's finally going to happen. On May 20th, my fellow commissioners and I authorized a competitive process to obtain a public-private partnership for this high-priority building. This process opened in early July and closes this Friday. Before our final approval of the P3, I directed county staff to conduct extensive analysis of alternative approaches to the P3, just in case it wasn't near our expectation or good enough. We ultimately determined that the P3 to be the most streamlined, cost-effective, fiscally responsible, low-risk plan at this time. The P3 is simply the most efficient, affordable plan, and it won't raise taxes because we decided not to raise taxes for this project. Because of our great work, the legislature came up with a 50% match of $94.5 million for a total cost of $189 million. And it's the goal to return the courthouse, to get the courthouse to the Red Soils campus and return the Main Street space back to Oregon City's downtown for further development, and ultimately have a courthouse that can serve the county of our size of 430,000 people. The original courthouse was built in 1939, when we had a population of 50,000, one judge, and all county government, including the 2 commissioners and the sheriff, were housed down there. So we have really outgrown that space. In my final minutes, I just want to cover what the county is doing with our money from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. Clackamas County will receive a total of $81 million. We've already received half of that, about $40 million. Next year, we will receive the other $40 million. It's an impressive amount of money at a time when there is an unprecedented need. The county is trying to be methodical and transparent about the use of these dollars, and our policy sessions are online for everybody to look and listen to our conversations. The first thing we did is we posted an online survey to ask you folks what you wanted to spend the money on, and over 3,000 people responded. We are also combining with our staff feedback with a list of needs, requests, and most importantly, allowable uses, and that's very important. So far, we have assigned 17 million, and this is the breakdown. $4 million for business support, which goes out through a vendor named Peaceful, and we use them to distribute the CARES funding dollars. Maybe some of you are familiar. $150,000 for business recovery centers. $6 million that will go to nonprofit support programming to assist those who have been helping our community members. This will spread out over a variety of providers and hopefully continue supportive services. $2.5 million to begin work on a much needed broadband infrastructure with a total investment of $10 million that will come out of the next round of ARPA dollars. We have allocated $2.5 million so our staff can go out and buy supplies and cable based on availability and price. Some of you builders in the room may understand that. $1.5 million for our operational needs to keep responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're still in, including the work of our public health team and emergency operations centers. And then lastly, but really not lastly, $3 million in premium pay for essential county workers who every day, regardless of the emergency or pandemic, showed up to provide the services that you all demanded. Just a reminder that in general, the funding is for responding to the public health emergency, addressing negative economic impacts, replacing public sector revenue loss, which my county did have revenue loss, premium pay for essential workers, water and sewer infrastructure, and broadband infrastructure. So what's next on that? We are waiting on the U.S. Treasury to finalize the guidance on the use of these funds before we can make any additional bold moves. So we're a little bit different than the legislature on this. We also have the staff committee tasked with establishing criteria for how these dollars will be spent. And I want to be very clear, if we do this wrong, the funds have to be repaid to the U.S. Treasury out of the county's general fund. And we have not budgeted for that. And it's not a risk we're willing to take. That's why we're going slow. In closing, I know this is a lot of information, but we've been working really hard, and I think our work is starting to speak for itself. Again, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here at the OCBA. And the county has been working in partnership, hopefully, with many of the organizations that support businesses. And now I'll be happy to answer any questions, and if Representative Meek would like to join me, I'd appreciate it.
Can I just quickly state that I want to thank Chair Smith, Tootie Smith, for the great work. As you can tell, we kind of heard our updates were similar to mine, and it took a collaboration of effort to really do this great work. So congrats and thank you.
But you go ahead and keep the mic. Well, great. Thank you for an amazing update as well. I'm so appreciative of all the information that Representative Meek shared with us. But it's really good to know that we have people that are elected representatives for our area that are so responsible in being proactive and trying to find the best utilization of available dollars. And I'm so glad to hear 81 million is coming to Clackamas County. Approximately half we have received this year. So I'm going to step over here and be out of the picture. So as a follow-up, we're going to go ahead and start asking questions now. Some will be for both of you and some will be just for one of you. Since you've already identified how you want to use the initial 40 some odd million, have you already given priorities to how you plan to use next year's allotment of the 81 million?
Well, you know, you think 80 million is a lot of money. Well, Kent has probably been spent 4 times already, right? And there's a lot of wishes and just a lot of needs, but we have to follow within the guidelines. And even today, we're still talking about if there's certain projects coming on board, can we use that money or not? We were hoping to get a final determination from the U.S. Treasury in mid-August. Now we're hearing it might be November. So you know what? We're just going to bank the money. We're not going to be in a hurry. We're trying to take care of the most desperate and fill the biggest needs. I think the legislature has done a very good job. I was so happy of all the projects that are in Clackamas County from legislative dollars, and Representative Meek touched on just a few of them. I think we just talked about ones that affect Oregon City, but I'll say Clackamas County Fair, $4.79 million for a new livestock barn and RV park. That's pretty cool. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart as a farmer. And there's other projects out there as well that are being funded. And the reason why I bring up the fair is because Clackamas County owns the land and we don't manage the fair, that type of thing.
I don't have.
Okay, so now a question for both of you. Today, the CDC was set to announce new mask guidelines for those that have been vaccinated already. What plans do the state and the county have to try to get the remaining individuals that have not been vaccinated to finally go get the shot?
Well, we've been working on that a lot. In fact, I was just on the phone with the governor yesterday. By the way, the governor and I talked a lot on putting forward processes for Clackamas County. Clackamas County vaccination rate is at 67.8%. Statewide average is 68%. That's pretty darn good. So pat yourselves on the back. To get a vaccination rate of 70% and above for anything, I think is going to be very difficult. But that in mind, we have identified the Clackamas County underserved areas, and I'm not going to say who those are, but there's 2 underserved areas that we can try to offer assistance. Additionally, we put the vax on the road. You know, we had cars going out, we had nurses volunteer, oh, we'll go out and give vaccines to anybody. And early on, well, not early on, about a couple months ago, we identified there was a special subgroup of people that did not get their vaccinations. And so it was the working people. You know, they come home, they're with their kids, and so we decided that we needed to be available between 6 and 8 p.m. in the evening to give vax in our areas. All the pharmacies are open for vaccinations. Vax are plentiful now. They weren't in the beginning, and that was very difficult for us. It was very hard for the county to maneuver through that since we were the public health authority. But yet Governor Brown, through executive order, took over that function, yet people were still coming to us, where's the vax, where's the vax? We didn't have it in the beginning. We have it now. So it's available. I just, you know, anybody who wishes to have the vax, please get it. I will say it's not mandatory, but this is a public health situation that we just need to figure out our way through, and I've really never seen anything like it.
I agree. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Same thing here. It's well, at the state level, we've been trying to provide access, easier access, and I thank you so much because our working people, blue collar workers out there, if they miss time from work, they're going to potentially lose their job and potentially lose their ability to buy groceries. It's just that simple. So making it available at different times, but there's still, unfortunately, the narrative out there that it's politicized. It's been politicized, and I hope that the new narrative comes out that it's your patriotic duty to keep not only you safe, but your family and your neighbors safe, and your community safe. If we look back on the history of vaccines, I saw a great article today. How many, before you sent your kids to school, had to get their shots before they went to school back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and just even a year ago? So there are vaccinations that are mandatory. This is not a mandatory one, but it's so life-saving. And it's unfortunate because that Delta variant out there right now is running rampant among the unvaccinated folks out there. They're going to go to a host that they can find, and it's just spreading like wildfire. So I am, for one, very thankful to look and see people's faces and give them a hug and shake their hand. And so getting our lives back is part of the answer, and getting vaccinated is the solution. So I hope that we can continue those conversations, and getting more excitement about it is necessary.
No, I agree. And just a kind of reminder, I can get up here so the camera can see me. For all of you out there in the Zoom world, you can go ahead and submit questions. If we are receiving them, we'll write them down. And my assistant here, Sherry, is already bringing me up some questions. And for all of you sitting here right now, the blue card, our question card. So if you want to go ahead and submit some questions to both Representative Meek and Chair Tootie Smith, we will go ahead and have time for those as well. So let me get out of the screen here again. Question, if you've opened up a newspaper lately, you've read we're experiencing a red-hot housing market right now with appreciation, and yes, Representative Meek, you're very much aware of that, being in the real estate industry. But we're also dealing with a real shortage of supply of homes, as well as supply chain issues with a sheet of plywood at Home Depot going from $10 to $50 a sheet. It's just making the construction of any type of new home next to impossible to provide affordable housing. With House Bill 2001, which I understand, Representative Meek, you were on that committee, that will allow all single family lots within the state, within cities of a certain population, as well as in the county, in your urbanized zone areas, to now allow duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, or other type of multifamily dwellings. And then this year, Senate Bill 458 allowing those dwellings to be detached. Another measure leading towards home ownership. How do you see the county and the state implementing these new measures so that you don't get a lot of pushback from neighborhood associations?
Great question and very important. Let me give you an example because it is about supply and demand. We can take it just from example of the vaccinations. In November, December, and January, when they first came out, who was online trying to get an appointment so they can get their vaccination? And they couldn't get it because there weren't enough here yet. We weren't getting proper allocation. There was a ton of demand, no supply. Now we have a ton of supply and no demand. The access to it, the housing market, if we work harder to make more units available, the prices will go down. You know, the supplies, unfortunately, that is an unfortunate, uninflated repercussion of the pandemic. But I've also been doing some research and it looks like the lumber supply, the supplies are going up. And we're predicting the prices to go down by December and January of 2022 for supply of lumber. So that actually, but if you look at it, over the last year and a half, the housing starts and applications have gone way down. The lack of qualified contractors to help build, lack of, basically demand for that, or at least lack of, cost or the lack of supplies, the materials. And so it's been difficult for a builder to build. Back to 2001. Oregon City, for example, they are working on to come into compliance with House Bill 2001. They weren't ready. They could have accepted the standard per, parlance the way it was given to them, and they would have had to implement it this year. They've asked for an extension, and so they're coming through with their own standards to support this, and that will come into effect next year. So it's not a voluntary thing. It is mandatory. And if they don't, next year is the end. July, I think it is, 2022 is the end of any extensions. And at that time, you go and if you have a vacant lot or if you have a home that you want to remodel, you can add on those 3 additional units. And so the biggest thing is that we have to be less NIMBYism, whatever, not in my backyard. Because we're all very protective of our lifestyles and our communities and our neighbors. But if we truly want to be neighbors, do you want the homeless population sitting out on your curb street or underneath your bridges? Or do you want to provide enough homes for them to be able to effectively and economically survive while the rest of us can try to achieve the American dream and buy our own home? And it's only through these policies, our Oregon land use laws are very difficult to begin with. And important to try to help us not be like, Nevada or New Mexico, where they're just spreading and do what they want. So we have great communities, but we have to look hard and work hard to make sure we have enough supply and economical and affordable supply.
Just real quick, Clackamas County has already had several policy sessions on implementing the 2 bills we talked about. Just to be clear, we deal with unincorporated Clackamas County outside the city limits. We have reached out to the Home Builders Association, community planning organizations, hamlets, and any other people of interest in land that we can, I call it increased density. So if you have single family residents, you want to build triplex, and I think that will help in the housing situation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Question for both again. This is from the people on Zoom. Water. You think there'd be plenty of it available here in the Northwest, but we have run into quite a problem recently, both for drinking water, clear water, and reuse water. Should this be a top priority for Oregon? And if so, what policies are underway to ensure a water resilient future for Clackamas County and the state?
Well, we happen to have in our midst is Greg Geis, is the executive director of Clackamas County Water Environment Services. They just went out with a huge bond sale earlier this year for infrastructure projects, for clean water, for sewer systems, and increased capacity. And today, in one of our sessions, the Board of County Commissioners looked at acquiring some more land to increase capacity. So we're doing what we can. Additionally, some of the ARPA dollars, as I explained in here, goes for water and sewer resources. So we're doing what we can with the dollars that we have. I'm very proud of our water environment services. Just last week at the NACO conference, the National Association of County Governments, that was held in Maryland, our water environment services group received national awards for their work in this area.
Yes, actually, when we talk about housing supply, water is a key issue. Many of us recall before we were able to expand the digester out there at Water Environmental Services, we were prepared to face a moratorium on housing starts. So because it's not only the clean water supply, it's what we're doing to treat those waters and getting back into our systems, our ecosystems. If you look back at history, right now you can look at the Colorado River and the Hoover Dam, and it is, I think, 40 to 50 to 60 feet lower than normal. And they had so much water coming down, they were supplying Arizona, Nevada, California. And Oregon, we've always, cherished that we've had our rain, we've had our greenery. We are facing a drought right now, a severe drought. If you look at the maps, that's why a lot of our forests are very dry and in very danger right now. We need to do more to preserve and conserve our water and water resources. I hate to say it because I water my grass. My wife loves my green grass, but we need to do more, maybe hardscapes, and keeping our landscapes to maybe retention ponds and retention water so that you can recapture and reuse. A lot of our buildings are using green technology by capturing and using gray water, I think they call it, for flushing toilets. So we need to start thinking outside the box, and because we don't have an abundant supply of water, and it is a very precious resource that as time goes on, we're going to be very thankful if we do all the work now to prepare it. So.
Great.
Okay, great, thank you. We appreciate that information. Homelessness is always rated at the very top when you do a survey of one of the major concerns that citizens have in their communities. What's being done in their jurisdiction to go ahead and try to address that issue. And I know recently the county advanced $3 million to the Here Together program so that they could continue their funding together with Multnomah County and Washington County effective the 1st of July until Metro starts receiving the tax funds. Is there any particular programs that you feel should be moved up on the priority list to address the homeless problem here in the state and in the county?
I'll start and let you continue with the more local programs. Yes, we passed, I can't remember the bill number, but we passed a bill, and it is 2004, that will allow cities, counties, nonprofits, churches to co-locate or relocate and add either transitional housing. Churches can now, 2007, 2008, okay, I was close, 2460. That was a game changer, Kent and everybody, because we are looking, where can you, so for example, maybe we have a vacant building here in Oregon City, and I think there is one up off of Washington. It's used to be an old hospital or a facility there. We could transition that to be a transitional housing with the funding, with oversight, because people are worried that, well, it's just going to be, you have to be willing, all the supportive services there, whether it be addictive behaviors, mental health, all the rest, accessing to benefits. That's a game changer. That's going into effect. I think it was an emergency clause, or July 1st may have gone into effect. But now churches can actually use some of their lands to provide housing, parking, because people, if they have a vehicle, they need to park it somewhere. But we're going to be a little more humane about it. So that's the initial phase of it. And we are making this, we made the investments, I want to say a good 50 million this year. It was a big, maybe 70 million into our homeless allocations throughout the state through different counties and agencies. But that's a game changer, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of what we're trying to do. And it's very necessary, and it's going to be important now for our nonprofits, churches, and our cities and counties to really start utilizing those tools. which I'll now share that the Chair Smith will share what she's doing.
Thank you for that, and we appreciate any efforts on those areas. Getting back to your about here together, it was Metro who put out two measures to the voters. The first one was a bond for housing, and the second was a supported housing services measure, which taxed, it was an income tax. And Metro told Clackamas County, Washington County, and Oklahoma County, you need to get geared up for the millions of dollars that you will be receiving on July 1st. And so we all did. At Clackamas County, we hired 4 positions. The other counties hired more, obviously the population is larger. And then when it came time for the allocation, we had done much groundwork. We implemented the LIP, the local implementation plan, and in the background, we are working on IGAs to adhere to the language in the bill that the voters approved. That's very important, right? It comes to July 1st, before, counties, you're not gonna get what we promised. So Clackamas County was supposed to get $24 million on that date. And we're going, what? Well, the short and long of it, tax collections didn't come in as fast as what the tax collectors had thought. Let's face it, it's an income tax. We're coming out of a recession, right? So Clackamas County, being the way we are, we said, okay, fine. We'll just put it off and we'll do those programs when we have the money to do it. Because we are not going to spend money we don't have. We are not going to borrow money against a promise of an income tax that might come or might not come, period. I will not do that. So what we did was we implemented an additional $3 million advance for Metro, which I didn't like at all, with the option for another $2 million to keep our current services operational and going. Nobody will be in the streets who currently have housing. What we're not able to do right now is expand on additional housing services because we don't have the money. And there's been a lot of discussion. Can you use your ARPA dollars to backfill? No, we cannot use any of our $40 million, total $80 million to do that. Certain infrastructure situations are allowed, but housing is not. So we're still trying to maneuver through it. We have a lot of nonprofits in Clackamas County who provide housing and some don't. But if you have any questions on this particular topic, please call the office and ask some commissioner to talk to you about it, and we'd be more than happy to figure that out. At Clackamas County, we are dedicated to the homeless situation. The legislature has passed certain tools and has worked on land use and has offered money, and we are implementing those as fast as humanly possible. Thank you.
Okay, great, well, thank you. Speaking of money, that seems to be a popular topic these days. The last quarter showed an annual inflation rate of over 5%. This is affecting every single item that people need to have as essential commodities in their daily life. Is the county and the state making changes in their budgets that you're aware of, recognizing that we may have this inflation for years to come?
Short answer is yes. We had a session this morning on which we considered many projects that are now over budget. Just so you know, Clackamas County has nine construction projects in the hopper that we have been working on, some for several years, some to come, and I made a list of them. I'll present to my commissioners and says, look, we're considering 2 projects today that are price overruns. Do we continue with them? Do we stall them? Hoping that maybe this is just a bubble and it will go away. You know, I don't have a crystal ball for any of that. But I will say this, we cannot put all 9 projects in halt them. We must move forward in the best way we can. At 5%, 5.4% inflation. To put in perspective, in January, the inflation rate was 1.5 around that. So costs are going up. Representative Meek says, you know, hopefully woods are going down, price of steel, futures on steel are going up, many of our buildings want to construct our steel. The nice thing about the courthouse P3 project, we have built in time not to make a decision on that. But some projects we don't. Some projects we must go ahead with, understanding that pricing is going up. We're watching the bottom line carefully. We're watching the bid process very carefully. And the reason for the inflation, if you want to target one thing, is the printing press in Washington, D.C., right? It's bringing home all the money that he's giving out, and I'm giving out. All this free money is actually accelerating the need for construction and building projects to get this done. So that's what's happening. I believe this is a government-initiated inflation jump. This is my opinion. Maybe you can offer some highlights on it.
Well, I'm not a certified economist, and I can stay at a day's notice. No, actually, I'm an armchair economist, and I love, the tinkering and understanding. And I did have a conversation, believe it or not, 3 months ago with Treasurer Reed in our committee. And I asked him, I said, I see hyperinflation on the horizon, and we're kind of experiencing it right now. And I agree. It is the printing press, and if anytime you have money out there, and you have more money than people can normally spend because they weren't spending it because there was nowhere to go, and now you have pent-up demand. You have these dollars, but now the pent-up demand is raising the prices too, because everybody can go out and do something now. Everybody can go out and buy something now, and except for pay the rent. I'm sorry, just a joke. But so part of it is the printing press, and that's always part of government, screwing with the economy, easy money, hard money, etc., and then if interest rates. So I have to thank President Reagan, because in the 80s we were experiencing similar inflation through the Carter administration. And there's some programs we have to kind of keep an eye out on that this administration or future administrations will have to look at. It's going to be, unfortunately, our economy is not like driving a sports car where you can just turn and start heading the right direction. It's more like a barge or a train, and you have to go a certain spot before you can try and fail and go back or make a correction. So it's going to take, like, things we want to see in 18 months is what we got to start working on now, or even 2 years from now. But it's going to cost more, and it's going to cost more. And I think that if you try to hedge your bets, that these construction projects could end up costing you more in the long run. So our agencies at the state are going through their budgets. They're trying to be as judicious as possible, being as efficient as possible, getting things done now, but maybe looking at starts at a different level. So if you already have the land, but just haven't dedicated or have to buy the materials yet, they're going to be looking at that. So.
Okay, great. And unfortunately, every time I go to acquire something, I see that price slashed with a red line, another number up on top. It's not going down. It's going
Walmart, wasn't Walmart lowering prices?
Well, they say that. I'll believe it when I see it. All right, well, we're going to change topics here. It's again for both of you. The Oregon City, and this is a question from our audience here at the Abernethy Center. The Oregon City School District recently had over half of their board turned over by the voters, and a big part of that was due to the online-only school mandate. Do you anticipate the state mandating the schools having to offer in-person learning for all students, even if there is an uptick in the virus?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I was on the Education Policy Committee and worked with, I think it was called Hill, the CEO of the Oregon Education Agency Department. And I was not during this pandemic, though. And I know that a lot of the policies are driven from the state. So you kind of remember too about, last year around May, when the state came up with their 150-page, recommendation of what you need to do to have your school safe to provide in-person class or even hybrid class. Well, that book and that policy direction is given to each school district, and each school district has autonomy to do what they want with opening, not opening, hybrid, not hybrid school. It is, I believe, my goal, and I think even my encouragement, and I think even the governor's, that everybody, we're going to have in-school participation in class this basic September 1st or whatever the first day of school is. I have grandkids and also I don't know anymore, but that will be the first day of school. It's in-person live teaching. Let me just ask you this, and I have a lot of contentious emails come to me. If the choice was that I could have in-person school with my children that can't be vaccinated, if they are required to wear a mask, is that a sin? Is that bad? I would say get my kids in front of a teacher. If they're wearing a mask, hey, go outside and get your exercise. We have ventilation systems we're supposed to have, but that is the issue. We have a lot of, the reason that the school board flipped like that is because either our leaders or our electeds were not willing to stand up and say, I want this, I want that. I think it's very difficult to be a leader and take a stand when you believe in a certain thing. And sometimes you follow the herd. And so people are looking for different leadership, and that's what they wanted. And so that's why the big turn. My hope is that our school boards, both in the county and my, Oregon City and the rest of my North Clackamas and Gladstone, will be live, be safe, and even with the uptake, that's the biggest concern, is that our children under 12 cannot even receive the vaccination. Just be safe, just, practice these social distancing rules still, and then we can get through. And I know they've really suffered greatly, their development and everything else this last couple of years. So.
Clackamas County does not deal with K-12 education or even college education. That's not in my bailiwick. Thank you. The only thing we can do is the public health part. I've heard from some superintendents in the county. Some superintendents say we will not have masks. Some say we're going to do a hybrid. So as far as I know, the individual districts are making that decision in life, that I don't see anything coming down from the Department of Education necessarily on that. That's the only thing I know.
Okay, great, thank you. Kind of a more local question here. Oregon City is the county seat for Clackamas County. And also down at the intersection of Highway 213 and 205, it's been designated by Metro as a regional center. We're so thankful that the legislature this year earmarked $7 million towards the reopening of locks, and this new public agency is being formed to go ahead and manage it. I believe once the Corps of Engineers has made a certain amount of repairs before it can be passed over. Where is the county and the state now in their discussions on the Blue Heron site, the redevelopment of the Willamette Falls, the just transportation transportation improvements for bike pedestrian? We understand a potential pedestrian bike bridge might be built connecting West Smith and Oregon City. Where does the county and the state fit with that whole Willamette Falls?
Well, that's a loaded question. Thanks.
I know. Would you like me to repeat it?
No.
I hope not.
Okay.
Did you take notes?
Yeah, I did. So, again, to be clear, that the Blue Heron project and Willamette Falls are two different projects on opposite sides of the river, right? I've been working on the Willamette Falls since, I think, 2013 at the behest of Congressional Representative Darlene Bowie, came to our Clackamas County Commission and said, we need a lead agency on this. I thought, golly, that sounds like it'd be fun. So I volunteered, and we made some progress on that, and here we are today. And I'm very hopeful that we're going to get the necessary repairs made on the lots to open it. They're currently owned by the Corps of Engineers in Washington, D.C. And negotiating with them, and I have done so in D.C., is somewhat difficult. I don't think they know what they're really doing or understand, because for most national lots, they're just shutting it down and filling it with cement. And here in Oregon, we say, no, we want that because it's an important transportation route in the event none of our bridges across the Willamette River are earthquake compatible. That is what we'd be using to cross the river. So there's that, and the public commission, the public corporation will appoint members. They will be making the decisions. Clackamas County will be a partner. We do have a designee from our board of commissioners. It's Commissioner Martha Schrader, who's working on that. He's very dedicated to that. And you go to the other side, where the Blue Heron Mill property is. And an investor from Olympia, Washington, initially bought that for a song. Okay, for a song. And that was in 2013. I was on the commission then, and Clackamas County could have bought it for nothing. The problem was, we were coming out of recession, and we had hardly any money, and the risk outweighed the benefits at the time. And if I had a crystal ball, we may have done things differently, but we didn't. So we sold it to this investor who did nothing. Made promises, who did nothing for years and years and years and years. But during that time, we did establish partnerships with 5 government agencies, the IGAs, which is really unheard of. 5 government agencies working together: city, county, state, federal, and tribes. That was tremendous, and we've all agreed moving forward. Now we know the Grand Rock Tribe has purchased the property. During the time before the Grand Ron purchased the property, the owner deeded to Metro a very wide swath of land for a walkway. So the tribes are negotiating with Metro right now on how to implement that, who has ownership of what going forward. I'm very happy that the tribes own that. I am very supportive of what the tribes want to do, and we've been in discussions with that. But the Blue Heron site is now privately owned by the Grand Ron, and they're having their issues moving forward, but they're doing the best that they can in very difficult political climate. I can't even begin to tell you folks how hard it is, even at my level, to make a statement and take a strong leadership position on anything. But you know, I weigh the consequences. I consider what the greatest good for all of you are. I consider the greatest good for all Clackamas County residents. Some people will disagree on this side. Some people are going to disagree on this side. Mainly, there's a big swath of people right down here, I think, who are mostly in agreement with what we do. And it's just, it's just what we're dealing with at this juncture in history.
Very good, Chair Tootie. Agree. I'm on the commission for the Willamette Falls Locks. That was my bill that established the public corporation. We did dedicate $7.25 million in the legislature to match now with the government, the federal. We're trying with our congressional delegation to get some funding for that. Army Corps of Engineers is responsible to make sure that that it's earthquake ready, and then we're going to do some work on the gudgeon arms and the blocks themselves to make it safe, operationally safe. And then to have the members that are going to be on there. I'm also on not the legacy.
Legacy project?
Yeah, the legacy, whatever, the.
Legacy and Riverwalk.
Yes, that one, I'm on that commission, so I'm sorry. I got some of these names and acronyms going to my head. But yes, and the main goal right now is to make sure we have the public access. There's gonna be an interpretive center there, a place for community gatherings, and just access to the beautiful falls that nobody even realized they were there and how just amazingly ominous they are. So we're looking forward to access to that. I'm hoping that it occurs sometime in my lifetime, because I'd love to be able to walk and just enjoy that there. And it will. It's probably another 5 to 10 years. I think we see as far as the projects go, some groundbreaking in the next couple of years. So that's good news. And I want to just thank Chair Tootie Smith, that when it comes to trying to represent our communities, that's the issue right now. It's hard to take a leadership role without being criticized, and the issue that I guess the kudos I can give to yourself and other leaders is that we are always trying to do what's best for our communities. And we all know what we want to do. We just may have different ideas of how to get there, right? That's right. And we are just trying to use our brains, and we need to debate and civilly debate and understand and listen. And we will all get to the finish line together. But it's only through, and we have to take the stones and the bullets that come our way, the terminology, I'm talking about. But we'll take that in stride and work and continue to work. This is, we're not getting rich. We're not going to be the president of the United States of America someday. But I think it is dedication. It's sacrifice to our families and in our own lives. But I think it's a dedication, a labor of love, And I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate you and our leadership and our willingness to work together. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Steve, really, from the bottom of our heart, and on behalf of the Oregon City Business Alliance, we were really excited to have both of you here. In addition to this being the first time we've gathered together in person in close to 18 months, we couldn't think of a better duo to have as our speakers today than Representative Mark Meek and Board of County Commission Chair Tootie Smith. So again, another round of applause for them. I do have one comment from our audience that I think is very appropriate in finishing. Thank you both for working together, being bipartisan.
Oh.
Yeah.
How about that? Huh? We can't underline that enough. And speaking of leadership, I also want to recognize two other people that are here today as elected officials. We have our Metro Councilor, Christine Lewis, over here. And Douglas County Commissioner, Mark Scholl. Without being acknowledged. Well, here we are. It's been a long time, but doesn't it feel good?
Yes.
Why? And your folks, they were so good. So I just want to let you know, those of you that didn't make it today, you missed out on one of the best Abernethy buffets that we've had. So, look forward to another great meal next month and for our August forum. Speaking of that, as you know, we meet on the fourth Tuesday of every month, so you can always just put on your calendar. 11:30. We're going to continue doing in-person meetings here at the Abernethy as long as the county and the state and the federal government doesn't tell us we can't. We will continue to be here. But I do encourage everybody who hasn't been vaccinated, or if you know someone who hasn't been vaccinated, please tell them to go get that done. It's the safest thing they can do for themselves, for their family, for their community. And the sooner we get this virus behind us, the sooner we can all get our lives back to normal again. So next month, we're going to have an update from representatives of the Oregon City School District and Tim Cook, president of Clackamas Community College, to go ahead and share with us what changes are they making in their school curriculum, knowing that we're transitioning now from Zoom and offsite learning to having in-person classroom teaching. And how do we prepare for the next generation? A lot of jobs that we had prior to the pandemic are not going to be existing anymore. We've made a lot of changes in how people work in their environment. And so we need to start teaching the students on how to adapt for that future world. So we want to hear what their recommendations are and what they plan to implement in the various curriculums. So again, many thanks to all of you on Zoom. Hope you enjoyed today's gathering. And many thanks, even more so, to all of you that are here in attendance today. And if you haven't noticed, and I know you can't really see really up close to all the people at the tables, but all of us that are here are wearing name tags. Oh, well, believe me, you will get your name tag. It's on the way. It's in the mail, right? So as soon as all of you that are attending in Zoom come to our in-person gathering, you too will get your own name tag. So with that being said, thank you all for coming, and we will see you next month.